last week we asked Dr. Austin Weze about the performance of some of those ministers who have left office either to pursue other endeavors or interests, and we specifically looked at the police affairs and one other, I can't remember now. But being someone in the aviation industry, how would you assess the performance of the last minister, Stella Oduah?
Well, the last minister was brilliant, was bold, and made a lot of changes. But like I said earlier on, every minister will come and go. So in the assessment of the performance of that last minister, she changed the face of civil aviation. And I believe the successor will take up from where she stopped.
What other areas are you hoping that the incoming minister would focus on?
Well, regulations were taken care of by the previous minister. Mm-hmm. This previous minister has dealt with airports and the physical infrastructure of civil aviation, airspace, airports, metrology, and moved into application of these efforts in the last couple of months. So the next minister would probably be recommended to come back to airlines. It's a cycle.
To airlines, that's yes, the operators.
The operators. The airlines are the top of the food chain in the aviation industry. So if your airlines are doing well, you're a good minister.
Okay, so you would be hoping that the focus will be on the operators.
Yeah, the focus will now be on the operators. How do we improve, of course, continuing with the airport programs, but how do we now assist the operators to get better?
Okay.
Well, we still have a lot more questions coming through from people. I think this chap is sticking with what he talked about, him not going there, but I think he wants to find out. He says, we've seen planes drop in recent times. Couldn't those be as a result of cutting corners, maybe the operation audits not properly done?
It's unfortunate when plane drops and people get very emotional. But when plane drops, it's always best to wait for the accident investigation bureau to tell us exactly what happened. You must understand, planes are very, very, very complicated pieces of machine that have limitations. And when we have what we call the safety envelope, if an operator operates within that safety envelope, it is practically impossible to have an accident or drop out of the sky. Outside the safety envelope, things do happen. But it is not fair to say planes are dropping out of the sky, because we've had some accidents in Nigeria. I believe the Nigerian aviation industry, both the consumers and the investors, the regulators, are all joining hands to continue to ensure a safe and satisfying aviation industry.
Well, I said, Raji says, look, what's the impact of multiple agencies on the performance of our aviation sector?
The aviation sector must have multiple agencies because it is multifaceted. So there's no negotiation about that.
So it doesn't impact on their performance, smooth performance?
No. There's a correlation. They must work together because, you see, aviation is sort of siloed. There are specialists in every field. You are an air traffic controller, it's a career. You are in airspace management, it's a career. So you are in flight operations, it's a career. Now you now need the supervising agencies to coordinate all these disciplines.
Should we insist on having age limit on our aircraft?
It will be a futile exercise because age limits does not matter. What matters is airworthiness enforcement. We will be shooting ourselves in the foot as a nation because the next, if you put an age limit, aircrafts will go and register in countries next door to you, and as sovereign states, you can't stop them from operating into your country. And that's why ICAO never talks about age of an aircraft. IATA does not talk about age of an aircraft. IATA is International Air Transport Association. What everybody hammers on, and even the FAA, airworthiness. Is it airworthy? So a brand new airplane, 6 months old, can't drop out of the sky if it's not airworthy.
Or if maintenance procedures are not properly followed.
If maintenance procedures are not properly followed, you will not be airworthy. So what we should be chasing as a nation is compliance with airworthiness procedures.
This is amazing when we talk about cutting corners, knowing full well that even the operator would want to lose his aircraft, or the pilot would want to die. That is why sometimes it's very difficult for us to put reason to some of these arguments. But quite recently we have actually seen better moments, and we're hoping that this can be hinged on what you just talked about, strict compliance.
Let me remind you, there was a period in Nigeria when it was one accident after the other. I don't want to mention names of the airlines because it's not necessary. But the thing about that era was that we did not have a civil aviation regulation. It was not law, so it was not enforceable. It was after one of those accidents that the industry insisted in a meeting called by President Obasanjo in the Villa that, Mr. President, you have to sign this thing into law. And it is that law, which is the Civil Aviation Act, from which the Civil Aviation Regulation was derived, that led to a safer regime that we've had in the past, in the recent past. And it is a continuous enforcement and intensity of enforcement, or getting airlines or getting the industry to be compliant to international standards, that will bring about safety. It's not the age of any aircraft.
What else do you think that whoever will become the new aviation minister should be focusing on to enhance performance in the industry?
Compliance. Compliance with regulation. It's all regulation, regulation, regulation. And where, you see, you're a government. The government is the father of the nation. As a government, you cannot beat your people down. We elected you. You didn't get there by yourself. You are there on our votes. So when we tell you to do something, you do it. Now, as a government, you must look for ways of making life bearable for your people. So if there's an industry and you're a minister, your prime responsibility is, how do I make these people succeed? Because their success translates to your success. So if there's a particular regulation that's difficult to meet objectively, it is your duty as a government to resolve it. That was why the intervention fund came up. When the interest rate was going to 28-30%, and so the government came, there was so much bad debts in the banks, and the aviation industry was actually going to close down some of those banks. The government intervened by introducing the intervention fund at from 3 to 7%, and that was targeted two things: take those bad debts out of the banks, which the banks did nicely and forgot about the aviation side of it, and also reduce the average carrying cost of funds for the airlines. Because if you are 30 before and you now have a refinancing of 7, add 30 plus 7, you get a lower average. At least it's better. But what we're saying now is that we need to revisit that and do something. The banks are stabilized now. We need to revisit that and do something that will now drive the air transport industry forward. Because if air transport progresses, you want to go to Kano from Lagos, why do you want to go by road? Your populace must reach an economic level beyond which they will travel by air as first choice.
Maybe they have to pay more. Wow.
You asked the question why they want to go by road, because they want to enjoy the scenery.
Those are tourists. Those are tourists. I mean, the business person, time is money.
Well, I think for starting, I'd like to find out. He says, Dana Airline are forcing customers to reschedule and won't refund. Is this right?
Again, I don't want to comment on Dana Airline.
Okay, comment on the
We're-
practice.
we're competitors. But I would go back, I wouldn't even comment on the practice, I will go higher than the practice. It is about compliance. The minister that comes in must ensure enforcement.
Okay, if your airline were to reschedule an airline, I beg your pardon, a flight,
Yeah.
would anything near compensation pop up?
If we reschedule the flight, you see,
Forcefully, forcing them to reschedule the flight, especially
No,
when
we
they don't.
will not force you to reschedule. We will not force you. You see, but Overland Airways is the people's airline. People just love us because we are dealing with the masses of Nigeria and going into the interland.
Who you want to pay more?
Yeah, they will pay more. I mean, business is about making people pay more willingly, so they will pay more. But you see, we will not reschedule and force you to reschedule. Yeah, we could have delays that are beyond our control, but if you reschedule, you will get your money back. You'll be refunded if you don't want to travel. But if it's okay with you, then join us and let's go.
Well, that's interesting because, more questions seem to be coming up for you. They want to find out so many things about this. He says, we should find out what are our plans regarding abandoned aircraft in various airports in Nigeria. How do you think this should be approached?
Abandoned aircraft creates a miserable feeling about flying. It propels and fuels the fear of flying, and they should be cleared out of sight. But again, it requires funding. You need to create what they call an aircraft graveyard out of sight of the normal airport traffic, where aircraft that are not in service or waiting to be decommissioned are stored. So this will come, but you see, the Nigerian traveling public should not be in a hurry. Let us address and consolidate safety. Then other things will follow.
Do you have ways that passengers can raise concerns, especially when it has to do with an operation, flight procedure with Overland Airways?
You can write to me, or you can write to the Civil Aviation Authority. You see, the unique proposition is that I fly, so I know what goes up there and what goes on there. And there's no negotiation on operational matters. You've got to do it according to the rules. That is the only way to secure the investment you have made. And if you do it according to the rules consistently, you will prosper. So why do it in any other way?
All right, Captain Boyo is the Managing Director of Overland Airways. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you very much.